all leaders will have followers, but not all leaders are effective and a good leader. I believe that you wanted to be a good leader yourself. And welcome to the 1010 Book Club sharing. And if this is your first time here, my name is Billy Chan. Today, we are so grateful that we have Michael White together with us to share the tips how you could be an effective leader. Mike is an Hudson-certified coach. He is a master life planner. Based on this process of next level achievement, he is also a student himself on happiness research and also neuroscience based research on how to become happy. And today he's going to share about his insight on this book, The Tripping Point by David Bryd. And in his sharing, he's going to tell you about what are the concepts, what are the tricks, what are the skills that you could build yourself to make yourself a better leader. Alright, let's dive into the sharing now.
So now, let me tell you guys a little bit about David Bryd. I had the pleasure of meeting him about 10 years ago, and I sat through a week-long leadership presentation training session with him. It just so happened at that time, I had joined a multi-level marketing company, and that multi-level marketing company, and that's a long story and another story into itself. But they hired David Bryd to train the top leaders in that company. So when I don't have my day planner, but we all were issued day planners. Now, I go back to Intel from 1992, so a long time ago. And I remember it was around 1995, 1996. All the executives and leaders at Intel were given a day planner. And I believe it was the company at the time that David Bryd was the CEO and president of, which was called Leadership Management International, or Leadership Management Institute, LMI, had consulted, it was a consulting firm, had consulted with Intel and had given all of our executives these day planners, which then trickled down to all of the lower levels. So I even received a day planner. And in that day planner was it was kind of a goal setting, goal achieving planner, which also included vision statement, setting goals, managing your daily tasks. So it rolled up, and so Andy Grove, the founder of Intel, or one of the founders of Intel, because it was joined with Robert Noyce and Gordon Moore. He was a big proponent of a gentleman by the name of Peter Drucker. And Peter Drucker was a business philosopher that also had a leadership style. And many leaders in the 50s, 60s, 70s subscribed to Peter Drucker. And then Peter Drucker was also in the same circle as Paul J. Meyer. Paul J. Meyer is David Bryd's manager. So Paul J. Meyer owned his own businesses. He owned LMI. David Bryd was the president of LMI. And so that whole leadership style came down from the Peter Drucker, the Paul J. Meyer, to Andy Grove, and it spread out into the Intel culture. And so when we look at books like The Tripping Point, that's sort of the genesis, if we trace it back to the roots, is those gentlemen, Paul J. Meyer and Peter Drucker. But David Bryd, like good leaders do, they get a concept, but they also bring in their own experience. And David Bryd brings in his own experience. He's a very spiritual person. He is very Christian, and so he also thinks about people as being good, right? So Peter Drucker was a carrot and stick person. So you have people that you need to always be managing people to make sure that you get all of the work out of people. And David Bryd kind of massaged that to more of, and we'll get into this, a theory Y style of leadership. Of it's better to believe in people than to need to micromanage them. So that's kind of the preface of kicking off the book, and who the author is, and the genesis of where this book came from, and some of the philosophy of the book. And so I put together a presentation. I don't know. So when we look at the book, it's rather small. So there's not it's not a difficult book to get through. It's written in pretty easy language, and it's pretty concise. So David Bryd does not add much fluff to anything that he says or does, and his books follow suit. So they are, it's very, very condensed. So the first thing that we'll look at is our natural human instinct. And so I'll move to that slide. We looked at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So at the very, very basic needs are air, food, water, sleep, clothing. So these are very, very fundamental. What David Bryd talks about and means about our natural human instincts, if we look at the graph over to the left, is very, very easy to stay in that survival area, because the survival area gets us pretty much everything that we need in that base foundation of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, all the way up to the self-respect, status, and freedom of esteem. We can all live pretty much at that survival level. But to truly get into thriving, it takes a little bit more effort. So it requires better planning, vision, goal setting, goal achieving, to actually get into the self-actualization, where you're doing more work to achieve something that you're trying to accomplish. But the natural human instinct is to just keep us in a comfort zone where we want to be safe, where we feel our best. So, for instance, if I wanted to go and become, say, a vice president of marketing, that's out of my comfort zone, because I've never been at that level. I wouldn't know, how to interact. So I would have fears, right? Quite naturally. And so for me, I found my comfort zone, and I stay there until I find a reason or a need that I need to grow, or some area that I need to grow into. So when we think about this concept, I have a question for the group, and I don't care how we go about answering it. I say, if you have input, just go ahead and talk, and then whenever the person who's done speaking finishes, then the next person can take over. But what are your own natural instincts that may be getting in the way of your next level growth? Let me take another one. Self-satisfaction and achievement of goals. Um, Fear of getting out of comfort zone. Fear of rejection. Fear of the unknown. There's a lot of fear-based responses to this one. Fear of overthinking, limited bandwidth. So yeah, to get out of our comfort zone, it usually requires us to have a system in place. And that system is what helps us move from that survival to the thriving area. And so if we're operating without a system in place, then to move to the next level is going to be very, very difficult, if not impossible. So that's our concept of natural human instincts. The next chapter, and before I move on, I'll just ask if anyone had anything else to add on this chapter of natural human instincts.
There are two more replies in the chat, Mike. Sylvia mentioned conflicting priorities with being a good present parent and a dedicated employee. And Tamli mentioned about it would be laziness and fear of change.
Yeah, definitely. Both are good examples, and it is when we've got priorities that are conflicting, to really start to need a system on how we manage the priorities in our life. So we'll talk more about systems later and how they can help us both prioritize and also help us when it comes to getting out of the survival mode into the more thriving and upward aspects of breaking through our comfort zones. Okay, so I'm going to move into chapter 2, which David Bryd talks about the power of choice. And this was one of my favorite chapters, just because there's so much rich content when we talk about the power of choice. There was another gentleman, and I'll let you guys write his name down because he's another one of my mentors. His name was Jim Rohn, Rohn. And Jim had, a very similar way of thinking, a concept of putting in the power of choice, like David Bryd. And I kind of like Jim's way that he conceptualizes it. And it's if there's anything in your life that you're struggling with, that there's 3 places to look, and we all have the choice on all 3 of these things to change. The first is our philosophy. So our philosophy is everything that we know, which is a lot because we've got Google now too. So we can know things that we may not even want to know. But we've been influenced by our parents, by our relatives, by our friends, by our professors, by our managers, by our peers. We've been bombarded since we were born with information. So that's not what our philosophy is. Our philosophy is what we have taken from all of these sources and found important to us. That builds the foundation of how we think about things. So if things aren't working, one place to check is our philosophy. So, for instance, some people may have the philosophy of, well, I go to work and they pay me $10 an hour at McDonald's. So, I'm just going to wait until the government makes minimum wage $11 so I can make $11 an hour. Well, that's one philosophy, is to just sit and wait for the raise to come, or go on strike. Yeah, maybe they go and they hold a sign and they march around, and they figure, oh, well, if I march around and I demand more money, maybe they'll pay me more money. And that's another philosophy. But another philosophy is, if I work harder on myself and I try and move up the ladder by hard work and dedication, that's a whole other different philosophy. So our philosophy is everything that we know, but what we find important to us and value, and how we build our foundation. The second thing is our attitude. So we have a few places to look on our attitude. The first is we ask ourselves, how do we feel about ourselves? So if we feel good about ourselves, that's good, right? Because we need to have a healthy, positive attitude about ourselves, that we believe that we're doing the right things for ourselves. We're in control. We are good people. So our attitude about ourselves. Then our attitude about how do we feel about others. So this is important that we ask ourselves this question, because if we start finding out that we don't have a good attitude about a lot of different people, we kind of have to start wondering, is it the people that we're hanging out with, or the people that we're associating with, or is it just our attitude is sour towards other people, and why that is? Because you're not going to get very far in corporate America, or in sales, or in really any role that you have to deal with people, if your attitude towards them is anything less than friendly. And then, of course, our attitude is also shaped by the things that happen to us. And so things happen to us every day, and it's not so much as what has happened to us, but it is how we respond to what has happened to us. So that's the attitude. So if some things aren't working out, we've got our philosophy to check, and then we have our attitude to check. And then the third is the activity. So the activity is what we do each and every day. So, I'm a Christian, and so I'll use the Bible as an example. And there's a book in the Bible called the Book of the Activities. And so if you look at what those early Christians did in that book, they were busy building a foundation. They believed that their philosophy was something. Their attitudes towards people were friendly, but just believing something and having a friendly attitude, if they did not act, if they did not do things, nothing would have ever happened. And so that's the same with us. We could be thinking about the next Tesla car, and we could be feeling great about ourselves, about the idea, and we really like people and think that they would uh, make great new Tesla cars. But unless we put those ideas and that philosophy into activity, nothing ever happens. And so those are the three areas that Jim Rohn and David Bryd, to a certain extent, uh, gives us um, the areas to look at. If things aren't going our way, we have the choice to choose any of those three areas. And the nice thing is there are only three areas to look at, right? We don't have to look at 10 areas. They're not 50 areas that we have to look at. So there's a Peter Drucker quote that I thought was actually appropriate for this power of choice chapter as well. And it's on effectiveness, being the process of doing more of what works, abandoning what doesn't, and knowing the difference. So as we start to look at some of the things that we're doing, and the changes that we want to make in ourselves for the next year's goals that we're going to be planning for and we want to achieve, we have to look at those three areas: our philosophy, our attitude, and our activity. And let me go back to the philosophy. So one way, if you think that you need an adjustment in your philosophy, meaning you need to change kind of the way that you're thinking about something, there's a few ways of doing that. One is reading a book. So if you want to get more information and maybe you want to start trading stocks, and so you would go to the library or you would go online and you would start gathering all kinds of information on the ways that successful stock brokers trade stocks. And you would start associating with people that trade stocks. You would maybe form a little group of very experienced people and maybe some people that bring in fresh ideas on how to trade stocks. And you would start to shape the way that you look at making money, perhaps. That might be one part of your philosophy also that you'd have to change. But you would have to start immersing yourself in the area that you're wanting to change your thoughts on, because changing our thoughts about some things, especially things that are ingrained, can be very, very difficult. But if we think about when we do it, that whatever it is we do, we want effectiveness. We don't need efficiency. Efficiency is good, but if it's efficient doing the wrong thing and it's not effective, then it's not giving us any benefit. So I did have a question on this chapter. Billy, I don't know if we got answers for this, but what are some of the benefits of having choices?
Probably you all can just type yours in the chat. We have like 115 people here join us. So do let us know. What's the question again, Mike?
The question is, what are some benefits of having choices?
James said freedom to choose. what we like to do.
Yes.
Lying mentioned about open up another way or path. Ability to choose. Josh mentioned freedom to not do what we don't like to do. That's good. Edison mentioned can't be backup if can be a backup if thing doesn't go well. Plan B, plan C, if not plan A not working. Ability to be in control, ability to weigh the pros and cons of each choice. Fulfilling different tastes from various type of people, flexible and more option to make best fit decision. Flexibility to make a right choice. We are in control of our life.
I'm glad that, yeah, people are participating and thinking about this and providing answers, because it it boils down to how we believe in our ability to have choices. Believe it or not, there are some people that believe that they have no choice.
That is a
And
choice.
I would agree with that. And the last thing I'm going to say about this chapter, to kind of sum it up, and this is my philosophy, is in the blue box. The choices we've made brought us to where we're at in our lives today. So if I think back, and I usually go in 5-year chunks. So if I look back at myself and what I was doing 5 years ago, everything that I have done from that time to today has brought me to where I am today. Because it usually, for me, and maybe others, to change habits or to gain experience, maybe they're much faster than me. But Malcolm Gladwell, and I think you mentioned him. He had that, what was it, 20,000 hours or 25,000 hours to become an expert. So he said that to really know something very, very well is you have to spend basically 4 or 5 years of your life doing it to become an expert at it. And so that's why I look back 5 years and I look at what I do today. What are the things I'm doing today? Because if I see what I'm doing today, I can look 5 years into the future and kind of know where I'm going to be at. So I look at my diet, I look at my finances, I look at my relationships, I look at my spirituality, I look at my education and what I'm reading. I look at my work and how much effort I'm putting into that. And the sum of all of those 6 parts, I can look at what I'm doing today and kind of see where I'm going to be at 5 years into the future, unless I change something in one of those 6 areas. And I really want to work on one or more of those 6 areas. Then I need to consciously make the choice to change it and then start incorporating it into my vision, which then feeds into my annual goals, my monthly tasks, and my daily activities. So all of these roll up, and it all comes down to the power of choice. Anyone have anything that they want to add to the power of choice before I move on?
Lang, you want to ask your question?
Sure. Thanks, Billy. Hey, Mike. My name is Laying. I would like to ask, how do you use your thought process to think ahead? Because you mentioned about like 5 years ahead, you are able to see or even know like what you would like to go achieve. So, would like to learn from you how you thought about a longer term planning. Because often I think we can only see something like, okay, what I want in the next year, but anything ahead of or longer than a year is really hard. So just want to hear your thought process and learn from you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, excellent question. And that actually feeds into the very next chapter that we're going to go into, which is called the chapter 3, the power of vision. And so this helps us put together a framework so that we can look into the next 5 years. Um, and this is very prescriptive of how to write a vision statement. And it's the process that I've been following for over 10 years. I don't think it's David Bryd specifically. I think that this is um, uh, a concept that has been around for maybe 100 years. That to be able to look into the future, I would say you could talk to maybe 10 leaders and get 10 different responses. This is the way that I've been doing it. I find it very effective. And so after I answer this, let me know if this helps or if you need more clarification. So the very first thing is we start at the beginning of the year. So we're coming right up to January 1st. So now is a great time to take pencil or pen to paper. And this is very important, and it's not written here, but it's important that you use paper and pen, not typing. You want to write it because there's been studies that show that there's a different connection in your mind when you actually write it down on paper versus when you type it, or even worse, voice to text it. So you want to sit down with a pen and paper, and you want to do it before the beginning of the year, preferably, and you want to write 5 years into the future. So we're going into 2023, you're writing into 2028, and you're writing it in the present tense. So you're writing it like you're already there, that you are like if you were sitting down today and just writing your day as if, this is what happened, this is where I was at, these are the people I met with, these are the things that I did, maybe this is what I ate, this is some of the conversations that we had. That's how you would write your 5-year vision statement, is in the present tense. Like, today I did blank. Today I was with so and so. Today I did such and such. And as you're writing that, and one other thing about when you're writing it, this is one page. It's not a novel. It is one succinct, clear vision that should not take up more than a binder, an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So you're not writing to fill up volumes. You are just writing on a single piece of paper, one side, a day, as if you were in that day, just to live that day with as much detail as you possibly can describe. What you saw, who you were with, the conversations you had. And then after you've got this written, and it's okay if the first time you write it, you don't like it, just use that maybe as a template, or use it as some notes, and then keep rewriting it until you've got it how you want it. And that's important, is If you write it and you read it and you don't quite like it, or it doesn't quite sound how you want it to be, just rewrite it until you have it how you want it to be. And now with that, once you have it written, at least once a month, you want to read that vision statement out loud daily. Now, there was an author by the name of Napoleon Hill, and he interviewed the top 500 most successful people in America in the early 1900s. So he did interviews with people like Thomas Edison and Henry Ford, and all of the top business tycoons, Andrew Carnegie in the 1900s. And what he found from these men were that every day they read their vision statement. So they wrote a vision statement and they read it every day. Henry Ford did not forget that he was, in the automobile manufacturing business. He knew what he was doing, but he still every day out loud read his vision statement. And the majority of these people did that. I would recommend at least a month. It would be okay to read it even every day, but read it and read it out loud, because again, like putting pencil or pen to paper, the connection that you get from your hand to your brain, you also get a much different connection when you're saying something and you hear your voice and it comes back into your ears, how it drives that information deeper into you. Two of the top, when Napoleon Hill wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich, which was 12 chapters, the top two things that these 500 people did or had in common was, number one, a burning desire, and number two, faith. And so when you have this vision, you want to have kind of a desire that you can see this vision. One of the other things to mention about the vision statement is it is 5 years into the future, and things happen in our life that we cannot foresee. And it could be anything. So our vision statement this year could look a little bit different than it is next year. But you want to make sure that when you're writing your vision statement for this year, that's kind of the direction you want to take your life. So as you're writing it, you want to be filled with some passion. You want to be filled with faith that you can go in that direction. That does not, these are not goals. A vision is not a goal. A vision is just that. It is what is possible. What direction should I aim for? Because there's so many directions we can all aim for at any time. A vision just points us in a direction. And so every year we want to review that vision statement, and then we want to either revise it, leave it the same, or completely rewrite it. And that's what I have to say about vision statements. Now, Billy, I asked the question, how has vision helped you in your life? Do we have anybody that wanted to answer that?
Now it's your chance to put the text, the chat box.
Okay. So this is just something that is helpful. I would recommend trying it. You know, it will take you shouldn't take you any longer than an hour to do this. And then I can tell you that there's more to vision. And if you were to go to David Bryd's website, he has a whole process of how to convert goals, be more goal oriented, and setting and achieving goals. We're not really going to go over that in this book club section. Maybe we can make it another book club session in the future. I could go through his system, but the vision is the first step to setting and achieving goals. And I'll leave it at that. Does anybody have any questions about this or any comments?
James, you want to go ahead?
Hi, Mike. Just a question. So how do you align your vision with your life partner? Like, do you do it together, or do you do your own vision first and then combine with her vision?
I do not do it with my spouse or life partner. I do it myself. And if my spouse wanted to do her own, then she would do her own. But it's not necessarily. And I would, and I like what you're saying, because there are couples vision where you could sit down together and write a vision statement as to your how you both want to proceed. And actually, I really think that's a healthy way, as long as you guys can both kind of go in the same direction, to come to terms with a global view of your next 5 years together in the direction you want to go. But for what I'm talking about here, this is a personal vision statement, and to include your spouse, your family, your children, your friends. If they're important in your life, I would say they should be included in your vision statement. Does that help?
Yep. Thanks.
Mike, I have questions that I wanted to seek your advice. Right. So, if I would imagine, right, if my vision statements are a bit of covering too much, I would felt a bit anxious about what I'm going to achieve in the 5 years, and even have those kind of self-doubt whether that is possible. The question is much more like, if once I crafted the vision, what will your advice, the indicator that say, all right, this is the right one, and yeah. So like, it might be a lot of things, it might be less thing, it depends on people to people. How would I know that this is the right vision statement?
So the vision statement is always more of a dream, and I maybe should have included that. And I'll pass these slides out, and I'll include that with the extra bullet, because you're reminding me of, when you develop your vision statement, it's supposed to be very big, like your wildest, craziest dreams. So you never really get to your vision statement in that 5 years, but it's very big. These are not goals. Again, this is not a goal for a 5-year goal. This is, Walt Disney before he started Disneyland. dreamed of having this magical place where families could come and bring their kids and have this magical experience with rides and characters, and that this was all a dream that he had. And same with Henry Ford, when he dreamed of, a horseless carriage, that there was an assembly line that could mass produce cars. These were just big dreams. He had no idea how it was ever going to happen or if it could happen. But that's what our vision statement does, is it's just very, very big. And we may never accomplish it. But when you read it and it fills you with a desire to want to go in that direction, and you have faith that you can go in that direction, that then you've got a good vision statement.
Thank you.
Okay. I will go on to chapter 4, and we talk about the power of attraction, because the power of attraction and our vision statement and our power of choices, it's all building on each other. So, there's a couple of sayings that I wanted to just bring forward. So one is by one of my mentors, Jim Rohn. And, Jim says, success is not to be pursued. It's to be attracted by the person you become, which means that, to attract attractive people, you must become attractive. And a lot of that, again, has to do with our philosophy and our attitude. So it builds on each other. And speaking of building on things, I put John Wooden's pyramid of success in here. John Wooden, if you guys don't know who he was a college basketball coach for UCLA. He still, to this day, has the most championships than any other coach before or after him. And he was a coach in the 60s and 70s at UCLA College. And he put this pyramid together, which really it was building attraction to his players. So he was very, I'd say, a character builder of people. And if you imagine, basketball players, they're 6'10", 7'2". These are very, very big, strong, athletic people. They're going to go on to the professionals. They're going to make millions of dollars. And he knows this, but he's molding and shaping these young men when he gets them, because they're college age. They start at like 18 years old when they came to him. And he would build their character so they would be attractive people, and not attractive, handsome, but attractive as a character. They were hardworking. They were industrious. They were loyal. If we just look at all of the attributes of Wooden's triangle, these attributes make up an attractive person. And so we have the power, the choice to live these types of values, so that we can become attractive people too. And then Napoleon Hill, So Napoleon Hill, up at the top right, he was the gentleman that interviewed the top 500 people in America in the early 1900s during the big Industrial Revolution. He wrote a 13-volume set of books called The Laws of Attraction. The president of the United States at that time, after he had written it, asked him if he could take those 13 volumes and make it into just one book, because the president didn't believe that most Americans would spend their time reading 13 books. So he wrote one book called Think and Grow Rich. And that became the genesis of a lot of different people, like the Peter Druckers, like the Paul J. Myers. They built on the backs of Napoleon Hill, who did like what Sean Achor did with all of these other positive psychologists, and then wrote The Happiness Advantage and condensed all of their work into a single book. That's what Napoleon Hill did. He spent 25 years of his life interviewing all these people to condense it down into a book called Think and Grow Rich, and give the secrets of what these people did. They all had in common. So Napoleon Hill summarizes the power of attraction by saying success attracts success and failure attracts failure because of the law of harmonious attraction. So Napoleon Hill believed that there's wavelengths and energy people give out. So if you're around some people, you may pick up on energy that they have and be attracted to that energy. It might be very, very positive energy. And then there might be some people sometimes that just give off a very low energy, and you're kind of repulsed from that kind of energy. But the power of attraction will bring people together. And there is a saying, and I don't know if I have it in another slide, but it is, we are the combined average of the 5 people we associate with the most. So, and there is a saying, and I don't know if I have it in another slide, but it is, we are the combined average of the 5 people we associate with the most. So it's a two-edged sword with the power of attraction. So it's very important that we attract good people in our life. And I didn't put any questions on this one, but I'll open this one up to any comments.
Yeah, Michael, I think this one, a different way of looking at it is almost like the rich will always get richer and the poor will always get poorer, unless there's an opportunity for the poor and the rich to mix. But it's very tough because there's always this invisible barrier, right? The moment you are in the have-not, it's very hard for you to bridge over and go into that group that has it. You need someone to help pull you along over there. If you want to do it by yourself, as you say, it takes a lot of time and effort. You may not be able to get there, but the moment you know someone, as in you're in that circle, then that door opens slightly a bit bigger for you. If not, it's very hard to try to push open that door. That's how I see it for the power attraction.
I like that comment. There's a couple of things to that comment, though. And one is the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. That, I would say, is a true statement. But there's also a statement, or the word luck, right? People say, oh, he got lucky. So there's an acronym for the word luck: laboring under correct knowledge. It's where opportunity meets preparedness. So if say you're poor, but you have the philosophy of, I need to read more books on business management, and I'll do whatever it takes to read more on business management so I can become the best business manager ever. And you may have never gone to university. You may not have even finished the 12th grade in high school. But you are now you're at a point in your life where you've hit the bottom. You don't want to go any further. And you start picking up information on how to be a business manager. So you read books, and then you get the knowledge, and you go to the internet, and you get more knowledge, and you do some YouTube videos, and you get more knowledge, and then you start networking with people, and you build your confidence, and you build your understanding, and you build your knowledge to where you can now have good conversations with somebody that can open the door. But you cannot just be poor and say, I'm poor, I need a job, somebody help me, without doing the work to get to a point where you've got the preparedness and then you meet the opportunity and then they collide. And when they collide and you've got that attractiveness, because now that attraction is you've done the work to understand the business. You understand to be the business manager, what it takes, the attitude it takes, the skill set, the knowledge, and you find that person who's made it already themselves, and then they take you under their wing and they say, okay, let me show you the ropes. And then magic happens and the doors open and you move from the bottom to where you were at to another level of growth. So yeah, I agree. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer, but the poor get poorer because they have poor, and this is in America. So I'm not going to talk about any other countries because America has all of the opportunities for poor people to get into another stratosphere of income. And I know that some countries don't necessarily have that for all genders and for all caste type members. But in America speaking, if you are at the bottom of the rung, you can climb the ladder. It's called the ladder of success. And everybody, for the most part, starts at the bottom level, and then you just start climbing. But I appreciate you making that comment, because that is important. And even in another country, even if you're another gender in another country that does not recognize you as significant, if you still gain that knowledge and you can have the conversations with the right people, you can still probably at least get maybe respect. I won't say more about that because I don't know.
All right, there's a question from Josh. Josh, would you like to ask your question?
Hey, Billy. Yeah, sure. Hey, Michael. My question is actually about one of the notes that you mentioned, that we are the combined average of 5 people that we are with. I do like that, because I think we have to decide our own circles. But there are also some circumstances where we don't get to choose. Let's say I just give a hypothetical scenario. If you're assigned to a team of another 4 team members who their energy level is completely different with yours, what would be your thoughts about that? Do you try to be one of them trying to merge in, or you want to do something else, right? Yeah. Just curious.
I think at work you always just be yourself. I mean, the professional yourself, right? Not anything else, but yourself. Even though you're with people that have different personality style or maybe a different communication style, the business place is pretty straightforward as far as being polite to people, being courteous to people. And being yourself and working as effectively as you can with your team members regardless of any conflicts that you may have with them. I never would advocate to try and emulate the other person or the other if they're all four. If they're all four act the same way, but you don't act that way, I would never recommend that you try to assimilate into that behavior. But I would also say that you stay positive, you stay yourself, you keep conversation with business constructive, and don't compromise yourself or your values.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Mike.
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question, right? I would like to know, interested to know about any real example that you can share with regards to the power of attraction that happens to you. That story could inspire us.
Well, a very good question. I would say that I've been blessed. There's a Reader's Digest. It was a little magazine that was published in America in like the 70s, probably the 60s, 70s. Little tiny pamphlet that had anecdotes and crossword puzzles and stories. But there was one story that I read as a kid, and it said that if you died and you had more than 4 good friends, and we're talking very, very good friends, that you lived a very good life. And then they went on to say that, when most people die, most people in America are lucky to have about 6, 7 people at their funeral. And then on the way to the burial, if it's raining, if the weather is bad, half the people peel off and they never go to your burial. So you may have 2 or 3 people actually at your burial. And so as I look at the people I've attracted in my life, I have probably attracted about 4 or 5 lifelong friends that I would consider family, right? That they would do anything for me and I would do anything for them. And we know that we're always there for each other. Doesn't mean that we're always in constant communication with each other, but it was just the attraction was mutual. So I like to do exercising. So I play racquetball, I snow ski, I mountain bike, and these people do that too. So there was this attraction of the love of these sports that brought us together. And then over time, because there's a saying, right? Your good friends know everything about you, and they still like you anyway. And these people, and I love what Socrates says, right? Is you don't know a person until you've shared a block of salt with them. And right, if you think about in Socrates' days, a block of salt was like 5 pounds, and it took you about 20 years to go through it. So you really have to have a long journey with people to know them, and they know you, and you still like each other, and you still find that attraction, even though it's not the same anymore. I kind of slowed down with my lifestyle and my activities. And as you grow older and you start a family, and then you start working more on families and work, and other priorities change and shift. But you still stay attracted to those people, and what brought you together is not always what holds you together. It becomes a stronger bond built on other aspects of the relationship.
Yep, thank you.
Sure. I'm going to move on to chapter 5. We've got 2 more chapters left to go. And I appreciate you guys staying with me. And so in chapter 5, David Bryd talks about the power of courage. He has a quote about emotional courage is your personal conditioned capacity to respond with positive actions rather than negative beliefs to all of life's events. And we're all challenged with life events almost daily, right? Hopefully not that frequently, but life challenges us, and sometimes at times we don't want to be challenged because we may have so many other things going on in one area of our life, to then all of a sudden now work has CPM. Our parents could be sick and ill, and we have to go and take care of them. I have a friend whose father is passing away in the hospital right now. He's 28 years at Intel. He volunteered for CPM. He is at a juncture in his life where family is more important, and the quality of his life and what he wants to go off and do now is overridden by the carrot of success and money to continue trying to build more wealth. So he's shifting his priorities. Now he's volunteering for that. There are others who aren't volunteering, and it's going to be very, very difficult for some people to transition from leaving Intel to going and doing something else. But it's emotional courage at this point in their lives and our lives to find it and to try and react positively instead of have negative beliefs. And this goes back to our attitude and how we feel about ourselves, right? So the power of courage relies a lot on how we feel we're going to fare as we have to make tough choices. Are we prepared? Are we smart enough? Are we capable? Are we likable? Right? All these questions come into power or play when we have to respond to a tough situation in our life. And let me see, it's Jim Rohn. Again, I like Jim. He says, you need courage to be creative. You need the courage to see things differently, courage to go against the crowd, courage to take a different approach, courage to stand alone if you have to, courage to choose activity over inactivity. And so, and I'll just read the other David Bryd quote, which is, develop your potential or settle into a comfort zone. There are only 2 options. Those are the only 2 options we have. And so, again, David Bryd plays on the dichotomy of we are always advancing or we are always declining. There's never a status quo. We're oscillating between succeeding and failing all of the time. And it's how much more of the things that we do effectively to be moving up the success curve that's going to help build that internal courage, that power of courage that we need. So when things do get tough, we have it within ourselves to have the skills to deal with those challenges. And so I'll pause there. And the questions that I had for this, I had 3 questions. And they kind of build on each other. And the first is, where do our beliefs come from? How is it possible to change our beliefs? And on a scale of 1 to 7, what's your emotional courage? So I see 1, how do you build emotional courage when it's low? You find a book, maybe find somebody that, like, I don't know, Mother Teresa or Maya Angelou, or maybe someone in your culture that had to rise above big challenges in their life and how they overcame their fears. Talk to people, right? Everybody has gone through something, and ask somebody, a friend, right? What's the most challenging thing that they've ever had to go through in their life, and how did they overcome, those challenges that they had? There's usually personal experience, other people's experience, books, right? Those are the 3 areas that we usually find answers in. And to build emotional courage requires education, because the more educated we are on the things that we want to improve our lives about, begins with education, not motivation. You have to motivate yourself, but you can't go to somebody else to motivate you. The life lessons all begin with education. And I would say, to build emotional courage, you would start with reading about other people's experiences. And here's another, go introspectively, right? Go back from the time you were young till the time you are today, and maybe just draw out a map. In our coaching group, one of the exercises they made us do was do a timeline from pretty much the time you're like 10 years old till present. And all of these times that are called crucible moments, and a crucible moment is a moment in your life where there was a big change. So maybe when you left your parents' house to go live by yourself, maybe when you had a breakup with a person, maybe when you went through a divorce, maybe when you lost a parent, maybe, God help us, if you lost a child. And these are crucible moments, and we've all had them in our life. And if you make that timeline and you look at those moments in time, and then ask yourself, how did I get past that? We all have the emotional courage in us. And it can get low. It can get very, very low sometimes. So in times where it's low, we need to be around people that can build it up, help build it up for us. people that love us, people that we trust. And that goes back to environment and association. You got to always look at where you're at and who you're spending your time with, because that's the biggest influence in our life, the environment and the association. So if we are uncomfortable with where we're at, we sometimes have to look around and see who we're hanging out with. And one of the questions during a new year to ask ourselves is, who are we hanging out with? And then we ask ourselves two questions. Is who we're hanging out with, are they taking us where we want to go? And if the answer is yes, then you stay with them. If the answer is no, then you might want to start looking for a new friend group or cutting people out of your life. Sometimes we have to cut people out of our life because they are distracting us from where it is that we want to go. And that goes back to our vision statement. We cannot be around 5 people that smoke and we don't smoke, or 5 people that are alcoholics and we're not an alcoholic. Because where are they always at? They're always at the bar. And you don't want to go to the bar. You want to go play tennis, but they don't want to play tennis because they'd rather party. And so you got to look. Okay, let me move on to chapter 6. And so I will move through these next chapters a little bit faster because I want to be mindful of everybody's time. So we get into the effective leader. And you know, this is both ourself as a leader and the people that are above us in leadership. And you know, people above us in leadership, again, some people are prepared and the opportunity, and they come together. And when you have a prepared leader and the opportunity meets them, they're ready to be a servant leader. And then there are some people that are appointed to management. And they're not quite in the leadership role. They're managing people, but they have some rough edges. So some people in management have to start shaping themselves into more servant leaders than as a manager in this day and age. So when Peter Drucker in the 60s and 70s wrote on management style, it was very, very management, right? Peter Drucker was not about leadership per se as a servant leader. And remember, Intel and other companies that came out of the 70s and 80s were following the Peter Drucker management style of managing people. And so when we look at McGregor's theory X and theory Y, theory X management style is they assume that employees dislike work, are lazy, they dislike responsibility, and have to be coerced to perform. So these are the micromanagers. These are the people that are always checking in to make sure that, you know, they gave a task and now they want to see, you know, an hour later, how much have you completed of the task, which is not very productive, especially if it's a 2 or 3 day long task, to be constantly bombarded with how much have you progressed in an hour or 2 hours. Then there's McGregor's theory Y. And so McGregor, just as a side, he did a survey. He's a psychologist that looked at the behavioral styles of managers and how they behaved. And he classified managers in 2 two categories: theory X, theory Y. And so theory Y assumes that employees work. They're creative. They seek responsibility, and they can pretty much self-regulate. They can self-manage themselves. You give them the task, and they can go to town. So during the 70s, 80s, even 90s, and early 2000s, a lot of management style, not just at Intel, but other places in corporate America, the Theory X manager was a prototype. That type of management was rewarded for how they managed people. But as the millennials came into the workforce, and some of you may be millennials, and the companies realized that millennials don't necessarily work for a paycheck, but they work for a purpose. So there's a hierarchy too of why people work. So some people look at work as work, right? It's just, I got to get up, I got to go do this thing, they pay me. Some people look at work as a career. And a lot of people at Intel say, yeah, I work, I'm a career person. You know, this is something I could do for the rest of my life. I get some fulfillment out of it. It pays the bills. I can take my vacation. And so they call it a career. And then on top of the career, there's something called a calling. And a calling is that employment that fills your soul. You're not even working. You're just doing it. It's like breathing. You don't even know that you're doing it. Now, a calling is something that's very rare, right? Because it's just that next level. And if you think about where you're at with what you're doing today, is it work? Is it a career, or is it calling? You know, find out where you're at on the spectrum and do some research on what it would take to turn if you're feeling like you're doing work or a career, into a calling. And Sean Aker does some mapping on how to try and move your mindset to a more calling mindset. But that's a little off topic. I'll get back over here. Let's talk about effective leaders. And so when the millennials started to come up into the workforce, the management style had to change, because corporate America realized that they were going to start losing good employees if they used Theory X management style on a cohort that did not want a Theory X management imposed on them. So, and David Bryd knew this a long time ago. Other effective leaders knew that the effective leader, and we'll go over these bullets, believe in people. Because they believe in people, they attract good employees. Because they believe in good people, they can attract good people. Effective leaders communicate effectively. So you always know where you stand with a good leader. And effective leaders use real motivators. So it's not a carrot and stick motivator. It's more of an intrinsic motivation. And effective leaders know how to share their power, which means that they are not always the one who's right. You might have a suggestion. It might conflict with your leader's suggestion, but a good leader knows a good suggestion and will run with a good suggestion versus saying, well, thanks for that, but I'm going to do it my way anyway. And then the effective leader uses the most effective leadership style, which is a servant leadership style, which means that a leader should always be pulling their people up. They should always be training and teaching their people more than what they know themselves. Because if you have a bunch of people below you that aren't as smart as you, then that's not a good place to be in. If you can be a leader that has people more than what they know themselves, because if you have a bunch of people below you that aren't as smart as you, then that's not a good place to be in. If you can be a leader that has people that you surround yourself with that are smarter than you, your whole team thrives and everybody thrives. And that's where David Bryd was going with what an effective leader is. So I had a question on this one. Which theory of management style have you experienced, and how well did you and the team perform under this style? So
Yes, I just commented that I like your idea of having a team smarter than ourselves. I think that's the I totally agree with you. If everyone is smarter than us, then yes, it's a high performing team.
yes, you don't want to be the smartest one in the room. That's a scary place to be.
Yeah.
And Peter Drucker, his words, I like this quote from him: management is doing things right, but leadership is doing the right things. So he'll leave us with that final thought on leadership. And then we get into the last chapter on effective leadership and the organization. And there's another gentleman by the name of Dennis Waitley. He's a psychologist. He was, I think, the first non-medical doctor ever for the Olympic Committee to be the board medical doctor. He worked with the prisoners of war returning back from Vietnam, and he says that we all learn by observation, imitation, and repetition. So, as we're little kids, we observe things, we imitate it, we repeat it. We grow up, we're in our adolescence again, right? We watch how our professors behave, we watch how our peers behave, we watch how our parents behave. We try and imitate things that we imitate that don't go so well. We don't do it, right? We learn that kind of behavior doesn't work. But those behaviors that do work and make us more successful, we continue to repeat. And the more we repeat it, the more it becomes a habit. Looking at observation, imitation, repetition inside of an organization, if we look at things that are working and we imitate them and we repeat them, we eventually we get into a rhythm. And that rhythm then helps us all succeed. So there's, I'm sure, many examples of people that have been in high functioning groups that have seen how high functioning groups work. But it's sometimes difficult to then leave that kind of group and go into another group and try and repeat that same formula. And let me let me ask a question. It's not the question that I have down below, but how many people have been in a very high functioning organization group and then moved to another team that wasn't high functioning? And why do you think that was? Yeah, culture, lack of collaboration. What was, if we look at lack of collaboration, how did lack of collaboration hinder the group that you were in?
Richard, would you want to give us a bit of explanation?
Yeah, sure. I think lack of collaboration will contribute to the team doesn't have a common goal, right? So everyone have their own personal goal, and they do not want to collaborate with each other to go toward a common goal, and this will cause the performance of the team to be affected significantly. Compared to a high performing team, they always have a single goal.
I like that. Goal setting and goal achieving is so powerful. And when you have a leader or a manager who comes up with 15 goals for the quarter, they are really setting their team up for failure. I think you're on to something when you say that the smaller numbers of goals, as long as they're the most impactful, when you reduce the focus and the scope, it gives everybody a much clearer target to aim for and can move a whole group in that direction with small incremental steps versus trying to accomplish too many goals. And if we do another session about goal setting, I will get deep into why, even for a year, for all of us, 2 to 3 big goals are all that I set for myself every year. So just wrapping up on the effective leadership, I'll read what David Bryd has to say about it. He says, effective leaders at every level of the organization foster positive and creative work environments, deliver measurable and sustainable results, and maintain the ethical integrity of the workplace. Training has little, if any, impact on behaviors that has been developed over a lifetime. And just because we talk about things or we go to a training, unless we incorporate what we learned into our daily life and it becomes a lifelong habit, it's just another piece of information. And we've not adopted it or incorporated it into our philosophy. Because in some cases, in order for our philosophy to change, it takes activity. It actually takes work to change our mindset, the way that we think about things. Training is an event, but development is a process. So if we continue to, if we want to change a habit, we've got to continue to make the little incremental steps every day that in the act of doing them seem like they do not matter at all, but we just keep doing them over and over and over and over and over again until what Jeff Olson says in his book, The Slight Edge, the compounding effect kicks in. So that's another good book to read. It's called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And it is all about the little incremental steps that we all take that move us closer to a goal. And I'll leave us with David Bryd's last quote, which is, real change and improvement is neither easy nor comfortable because it lies just beyond your comfort zone. And it's a beautiful way to sum up the book, The Tripping Point, in that we all have a comfort zone that we live in. And it's how do we get out of that comfort zone if we want to get to the next level of achievement, get to the next level of a relationship, get to the next level of our career, of our finances, of our spirituality, of our health, of our education. You pick any of the 6 areas and you want to work on it, you have to get out of your comfort zone and make that the effective choices that will impact the end result. And with that, Billy, I'll turn it back over to you. And I really appreciate everybody's time and input. And actually, before I turn it back over to you, Billy, I'll open it up to see if anybody else has anything to add.
We become the combined average of the 5 people we associate with the most. So I'm thinking that if let's say we have 3 persons with different skill set, can it form a better effective leadership in terms of they have?
Well, the spirit of that phrase, we become the 5 people we associate with the most, is not necessarily within work, because in work we are not put together with people we choose to work with. In work, it's random. You can work with anybody. They can pair you up with anybody. The people outside of your group that you have to work with, you don't choose to work with them. What that phrase means is outside of work. Now, you may have friends that you work with that are part of your outside circle that after you get done with work, you go and hang out with and you associate with them. So that means that it's the people that you choose to associate with are those people that you become most like. So if you're with a group of people after work and they all go to the bar, more than likely, if they're your friends and that's your group, you're going to the bar too. Or if they go to the gym, more than likely, if they're your people and they're your friend, you're going to the gym too. Or if they all go work on their car or whatever they're interested in, you as a collective group become interested in that, and you have your ideas and your philosophy and your attitude all are combined by those people that you associate with. It's very, very difficult. It's called, it'll come to me in just a second, cognizant dissonance. If you go against everything else that other people that you are going with are going towards, if they're going towards this way and you want to go this way, but you don't, you go that way with them, you are confused. And I don't mean you, but I mean, we can become very confused. So that's what that saying means, is outside of work. Because within work, we do not choose who we have to work with all the time. Sometimes we do, and that's really fun. But most of the time, you work with whoever can help you get done the function that you need to perform. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you, Mike.
Okay. So Billy, I'll let you wrap it up.
All right, Mike. Yeah, we are at the top of the hour, the 12 p.m. right now. So Mike, I want to end this with this question that I have for you. So look at at the 1010 book club, and then we read books, right? You mentioned multiple books throughout your sharing. Would you share with us like what is the one book that you have given out most to your friend or family that you would recommend us to read?
There's two.
Go ahead.
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason.
Right.
I made both my daughters read The Richest Man in Babylon when they were 10 years old and write a book report. I think it's the most for kids to learn those concepts so early because it builds, again, like the philosophy. Laboring under correct knowledge is the acronym for luck. Laboring under correct knowledge, which means when you are prepared for something and opportunity knocks, you can unlock that door. So that's why if you're preparing today to become an accountant, right? Takes 20,000 hours to become an expert accountant. So about 4 or 5 years. So if you labor to become wise or educated in accounting, when that opportunity knocks and you've got the preparedness to become the accountant, and you find that person that says, hey, I need an accountant, now you can unlock that with good luck. You've labored under correct knowledge.
Mike, thank you for your time and willing to share it with us. And that's all the time that we have for today. I believe that you gain insight on how you could be a good, effective leader. So if you like video like this, do subscribe and like us and check out the video recommendation that I have posted over here. And remember to share, read, and have fun together with the 1010 Book Club. I will see you again the next month. Happy learning and bye-bye.